Artificial intelligence. We could not possibly curate the content of our 2020 show without diving deep on AI and its impact on healthcare. Consumers feel strongly that this technology holds a lot of promise. This next session convenes a real AI team on our digital health stage, and I'd like to welcome them and introduce you to our moderator, LYGEIA Ricciardi from Carium.
Thank you, Jill. It is very exciting to be back on this stage where I've had the privilege of sharing with you for a number of years. I don't know if I've ever had the privilege of sharing with Jill's mother, however. That's really very thrilling. So I work at Carium. I'm the Chief Transformation Officer, and I have spent many years promoting the role of patients and consumers in their own health, empowering them and using technology to do so. I'm super excited about this panel today. We have a diverse range of panelists who come from very interesting and very different perspectives, and we're going to be talking about AI, flexing its shrewd and significant powers. I personally am certain that they are significant, shrewd, sometimes, maybe not always. We'll talk about that. So to start off, I'd like to call on our, obviously we have a payer here, we have a large tech company, and we have a smaller, I don't know if you qualify quite as a startup, but a smaller company relative to, say, Philips and Humana. So what I'm going to ask you guys to do briefly is just quickly introduce yourselves, and then and what you do with AI, and then we'll get into some discussion about how you think about it and where its pros and cons are. So let's get started with Scott.
Yeah, so my name is Scott Kim. I am the CEO of NeoFed USA, based in San Francisco. We're the healthcare tech company that actually focuses on making software and wearable devices for stroke rehabilitation. So what we do is, for example, our flagship device is called Smart Glove, NeoFed Smart Glove. What that does is you wear this smart glove, like you can actually see it, and then it becomes a virtual controller. So once you wear it, and all the motions that you're making with the glove on, it's recognized by the software. And what is differentiator, for us, is we actually utilize the game contents. So instead of using rubber ball or any other conventional method, we actually let our patients and customers use the game content, so they actually play a game, but at the same time they're going through the clinically proven rehabilitation process. So how the AI works for our software and business is AI is actually running all the programs behind the scene. So every time the customer plays the games or rehabilitate themselves, and all the data are just used for machine learning. So the computer just becomes smarter by itself, and then it gives the recommendation based on the progress of the patient. So we just call it we're the Netflix in rehabilitation sector. So the more the patients play, then the algorithm actually gets to know more about the individual status.
So I'm going to say that yesterday I stopped by Scott's booth and checked out the product, and it was actually a ton of fun. So if you guys are able to get over to the floor and you can actually play these games to improve your balance, and you're out there avoiding bombs and matching your steps to fit other, playing hopscotch or whatever that was. It was a lot of fun. Yeah. So thank you for that basic opening. Ang, if you would let us know what you guys are doing at Humana and tell us a little bit about you, that'd be great.
Sure. My name is Ang. I'm the VP of Enterprise Data Science and Cognitive AI for Humana Digital Health and Analytics. What I do with my team at Humana is using machine learning, advanced analytics, AI, and also experimental design to really help our members to achieve their best health by providing a simple and personalized experience, and also by advancing our integrated care delivery strategy. So we view AI not as artificial intelligence. Well, we actually, internally, our definition of AI is augmented intelligence. So what that really means is we use large amount of data, we pick the right algorithms, and we get insights out of the data, and we integrate the insights into the tools that are used by our members and our employees who are helping our members to enable them to do more, to help the members to achieve their best health. Yeah.
Cool. Okay. And Jeroen, if you would fill us in a little bit on what you're doing at Philips and your role there.
Yeah, sure. I'm Jeroen Tas. I'm leading strategy and innovation for Philips. And to us, our role in the world is actually to help about 3 billion people by 2030 to live healthier lives. So we're applying technology to create high impactful solutions. And I can give you a couple of examples. I think we're actually having a lot in common with Humana, and therefore we're also collaborating on many of these areas, including application of AI to identify those patients that are in need of an intervention at the right time and guiding them towards a better outcome. But we have 4 domains that we focus on: personal health, and I want to give an example about sleep. So we have CPAP devices where we use AI to understand sleep patterns. But we also have a sleep band that we brought to the market, and everybody can try it. And it has 3 sensors in it that are actually providing a 3-lead EEG. So we can understand at what stage of the sleep you are. And then as you enter deep sleep, we'll use sound to actually stimulate your deep sleep. So as your neurons start firing, we kind of push them a little bit further. And
is that audible only to the individual, or if you say share a bed, would someone else be like, whoa, okay, he's really asleep now? Like, could you hear that, or how does it work?
No, it's really very subtle, and it's so subtle that it shouldn't wake you up. Obviously, it defeats the purpose. But it's just an example. Then in the connected care space, we're the market leader in monitoring. 43% of all monitors are Philips, but they're mostly in intensive care units. Now, if we can apply what we're doing in determining the state of a patient and predicting the state of a patient, whether in ICU, general ward, or at home, I think we can turn it into proactive care. And actually, that's where we're collaborating with Humana. And that can range from, chronic disease to maybe even fall detection and fall prediction. You talk about gait changes. We also notice gait changes or people not standing up anymore. And that is an indication that there's a higher risk of falls. Very exciting area for us is in what we call precision diagnosis. So it used to be you do an MR image, and then the radiologist will interpret that. What we're doing is quantification of disease through multiple modalities. So if you look at a heart, you can look at it on a CT, an ultrasound, or even an ECG. We combine all of that in a model of the heart where we can quantify it, where we can detect disease and assess risk. And in cancer, it's really important to combine that with pathology and even genomics. So creating these very deep profiles on disease, I think, will be impossible without AI. And then lastly, one of my favorite examples is in the smart cath lab, where we do cardiac procedures, but also ablation of cancer, where the surgeon will wear AR, VR goggles. So we are doing clinical trials with HoloLens. Yeah. So they keep looking at the patient. They literally see the catheter going into the body. It's a fusion of ultrasound, CT. We can do hemodynamic monitoring all in real time. It's very complex information that we can personalize to the surgeon. We can guide the surgeon and create way better outcomes. And AI help us. So we do about 10,000 procedures a day throughout all of our systems. If we can now learn from every procedure and bring back that learning into guidance, we close the loop, which we believe will have a huge impact.
That sounds really exciting. As I mentioned, my background is about empowering patients and consumers. And I know, Scott, obviously your work is directly empowering a consumer to, heal and recover perhaps from a procedure. And I've heard you talk about, empowering the physician. Could we talk a little bit more about specifically how AI can be used to empower consumers themselves or patients? if either any of you have examples. I mean, obviously your whole enterprise is essentially about that, but if you want to say more about it and the power of doing that.
Yeah, I think definitely it broadens the reach. It's like, without, I mean, like I just saw earlier a presentation, it says the hospital at home. And it used to be like, for example, like stroke, because that's what we do. Like you go to a clinic or, outpatient therapy, and that's probably like once a week if it is, lucky, or like once a month. And then you get there, and then, you get therapy probably like an hour or half an hour. And then you come home, and a lot of times, like 99% of chance, like, the patient, like, is given, what to do at home. But then again, like half of them, like, don't really do the homework. And then there's a lot of, like, discrepancy between what clinicians want them to do and then what they do at home, indeed. But with the AI just like coming more available, like just people are just able to, like they do have the companion. I mean, with the tele-rehab coming out, but, especially like using the, algorithm, it's like even if like there is no, therapist, but like they still are getting the service. And they actually, not even that, they can actually like monitor their progress. So machine actually tells you like how well you're doing. So definitely they get empowered like through the, like just algorithm-based like exercise or like therapies, in my example.
Got it.
Yeah, I think at Humana, the way we think about how AI empower our members is really, have a better understanding of the total illness of the patient, of the member, by not only just looking at utilization data, but also unstructured data. I know social determinants of health came up multiple times today and yesterday.
Yeah.
Imagine today you can have not only just the BMR charts, right, but also you can produce a table of social determinants. You can have this information in the table side by side of you. So before you say, I want you eat more green, less red, you might want to know the member actually said, I'm actually out of food.
Right.
My social security check will come in by the end of next month. So you have a better way of understanding.
So you have a better understanding
needs.
of the whole person so that you can respond to their specific needs.
Yeah.
And are there ways in which you guys are presenting data back to consumers or patients themselves, maybe so that they can learn or, derive insights from it directly? Or is it mostly through having better equipped caregivers to support them?
We truly do both. We advanced of the digital channels that we have. There's a lot of online interactions now between our members and Humana systems. And of course, we also empower our employees with the kind of data that we have. Yeah.
And are you using things like chatbots and other things that are...
We do. We do. We are actually testing and learning, this kind of new emerging AI technologies. Yeah.
What are you guys most excited about within the sort of foreseeable horizon of AI in terms of applications to your own work? What are you most thrilled to put into practice?
Well, I want to pick up on what Scott and Eng said. And what drives our health is quite complex. It's my daughter has type 1 diabetes. And, that's a clinical condition. But stress, what she eats, how she exercises, her mental state, anxiety, all of that plays a big role. Now, to what extent that plays a big role for you, how it relates to medication adherence, and I can see her in many times that she's off. Her sugars are high or low, and she doesn't know how to manage it. I think if we could give her an AI companion.
How old is she, by the way?
She's 29.
Okay.
And
so
she
she's
had
a big
it
girl.
since she was 12 years old.
Yeah.
And it truly determines how she's living.
Yeah.
But for her, it's very hard to figure out, what's driving it and what are her levers to compensate. And I think our ultimate goal, and that's what I'm most excited about, is to help create a companion that in the background will help you interpret all these multiple faceted drivers towards helping you bring you to a better place.
That's
and
great.
do that in as seamless and personal as possible. And I think we're not yet there, but we will be there because there's a lot of technology. You know, I just spent time with Amazon on what we could do with Alexa embedded in some of our propositions. If I look what we're already doing with cameras, so we have an emergency room camera that can just scan the room and say, hey, Scott, you're actually the highest acuity patient here because your temperature is high and we see a respiratory rate that's out of whack.
Thank you.
We see pain and stress in your face. And actually, we already have that product on the market. Now, you're talking about stroke patients at home. If we can combine with voice and camera and your glove, suddenly we're raising the level quite a bit higher to help those stroke patients get back to, you know, the right place. If we look at Humana and we hone in on the patients that are the highest risk to them, for themselves, but also to the system, can we proactively reach out with the right tools? And that will be different, you know, it will be different for my daughter who's highly educated and extremely motivated to control her life, or an elderly person that may be, you know, in the social environment that you just described. So it has to become very personal, very tuned to the context. And that's what I'm excited about. I'm not claiming we're there, but I'm claiming that we're gonna get
That's
there.
the vision. Cool. Let's hear from you both. Scott, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree, you know, with everything that was just said. And then just like, you know, circling back with, you know, like Anne and Philip's example, I think fundamental things that's really exciting, you know, like the happening is the growth of the data. So I think according to the research done by Dell, and there are like, you know, like the past 3 years, just the past 3 years, like the data growth, anything related to healthcare AI, that's been like almost 900%. And then there are, you know, like healthcare, you know, related apps, like 300,000 apps. So I'm pretty sure, like, if I ask, you know, like everyone here, it's like, does anyone have, like, not have healthcare app? And then probably like nobody almost. And it's like every day, it's like hundreds of apps are just like coming out. And then this is like, you know, like just double, like, you know, compared to you know, like past couple of years. So I think the more data means that, you know, more opportunities.
I mean, there's data from so many sources too, and the line between healthcare and non-healthcare data is fuzzy. So however you look at it, the amount of data that's potentially available to analyze is growing all the time.
And then, you know, like we're based in San Francisco, so, you know, there's a lot of interaction with Silicon Valley, you know, companies and all that. And even like, you know, like funding that all these startups are getting, it's like last year until Q3, like, I mean, I saw the number, and it was already like over 3.1 billion. And then 2018 entire, there was like less than 2.5 billion. So already like first 3 quarters are already catching up. And it wasn't really like the biggest economy, you know, like last year either. So I think the depth of the data, breadth of the data, I mean, like the way you use it, like that's a different story. But I think just it's absolutely phenomenal that like we're just like getting so much data.
The opportunity, the sort of fire hose of possibility.
Which becomes the foundation of AI. Ultimately.
Cool. What about you?
Then there is a big question, obviously. You know, how do you make sure that the data is of the right quality? That you
yes, we're
have
getting to
the
downsides.
Where you can get it securely interpreted in a normalized way. So there are a couple of bigger questions that
absolutely.
Let's give Ang a chance to talk about what he's excited about, and then I want to hit on some of the downsides and the risks and those issues.
I definitely share what Scott and you said about the true opportunity to really leverage the velocity and the volume of the data and getting value out of this data by AI. So what I mean by that is maybe I can share with you guys a very concrete example at Humana. It's actually published about 18 months ago by our CEO, Bruce. So internally, we call it the story of finding Jimmy. And who is Jimmy? Jimmy is a member who is at almost the highest risk of developing diabetic foot ulcers. For those of you who have clinical background, typically, amputation is preceded by a DFU, right? And the cost for amputation is about $20,000 on average. That's also like data from 18 months ago, could be more expensive now. And just treat a DFU patient is like $6,000, $6,500, right? So on an annual basis, we actually spend like $400 million for this population. So we have a lot of data, but the way we look at this is let's use the power of really identifying who are at the highest risk. But don't just stop there. Truly understand how you can gain the trust from Jimmy. Because Jimmy may have other problems. It turned out Jimmy has a lot of medications. He cannot afford medications. Again, going back to social determinants. And how do you help them? Using, maybe equivalent effective drugs, but low cost.
Sure.
And we actually, I think we leveraged our Humana pharmacy. We were able to actually help him save $2,000 on medication on an annual basis. So every body is different. Every mind is different. The environment everybody is living in is different. I think what I'm most excited is, AI opens the opportunity for us to really focus on individual health engagement, in addition to population health management.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
So bring us around, Jeroen, to some of the risks and downsides of AI. It's not all kind of a sunny, field of new opportunities. What are some of the challenges that you see?
Well, the first one is obvious because AI learns on data.
Sure.
And the quality of the data determines the quality of the AI. And that's why people talk about bias, because data may be skewed. There's a risk because many of the data and EMRs that are used as a basis to have the algorithms learn may not be optimized for clinical outcomes. Reimbursement is important, liability is important. So are we really dealing with the quality of the data that we need to have it learn? Then it needs to come together. And, different things mean different, different measures may be different in different contexts. So if you use data without context, you may be looking at the wrong thing. So contextualizing the data is very important. And
so there's the raw data itself, understanding the context in which it was created, which is sort of a separate thing.
I can measure heart rate, heart rhythm in an ICU, which is a controlled environment, or I can measure it while somebody's running up the stairs. If I don't know the context that he's running up the stairs, what value is there?
You need to know that. Yes, of course.
So, and that's not the case. And things are codified differently in different places. So all of this is
sort of the interoperability issues as
well. And semantical interoperability, not just, it has the same forward, therefore we can parse it and look at it. We understand the meaning. And that's where I think we still fall short in many places. It's still very hard to aggregate data, to make sure it's contextualized and it's of the right quality. And without knowing that, it's very hard to trust the algorithm.
What do you guys do at Philips to mitigate some of those risks?
Well, we go really deep into the source data, and we make sure that that we promote sharing of data between our customers, and specifically, we're working with Humana, who has a very rich set of data, but we're working with many of the largest university medical centers. And the more you can aggregate the data, the more you can look for data that actually skews outcomes. So we created a platform where people can develop their own AI algorithms on annotated data. You need to have ground truth. So for instance, if you measure your glove, you know, there is a gold standard that people are measuring today.
Absolutely.
So how do you compare to the ground truth and the gold standard? If we want to predict something, how can we prove it from historical data that has been using, you know, gold standard measurements that we can actually link to that? So I think people get really carried away very quickly without doing the real dirty work, which is...
No, I think you're right. There's sort of an assumption, and I think often at CES we wouldn't be here if we didn't to some extent believe that there's value in technology and data, and so often we assume that data is somehow truth and don't think about all the subtleties of ways in which it might be biased or unreliable or just plain wrong.
And you need humans to apply judgment to this as well.
Absolutely.
You know, there are still armies of people labeling images for Google, and
I think we may be part of those armies every time you try and, you know, buy something or whatever, and you have to indicate where you see, you know, a street sign or whatever. Any thoughts, you guys, on some of the challenges and challenges that actually impact you, not just hypothetically, but like this is a problem we deal with regularly, and this is what we do about it.
Yeah, I think first of all, I share with Philip's perspective, really no data, no AI, right? So you gotta have the right data as input for your machine learning algorithms, and then you get the, you know, expected results and the performance of your models. Being a Humana, we heavily invest in you know, data management, data governance, identifying certified set of data. We have a team dedicated for, you know, managing data quality, things like that. In addition to the data challenges, I think, you know, just like any other new technology, AI has definitely certain limitations right now. I'll say two things. One is the what I call the adaptivity, meaning you spend 18 months, you collected data, you build a system, you put it into use in practice, and let's say it is for helping your members. And now you're thinking about the total health system and say, hey, I want to do something similar for the physicians or the providers. What typically, you know, to your point, involves is another round of development, right? You have to gather you know, another data set, do the training, do the selection of algorithms, and also do, you know, parameter optimization, system integration, this or that. So the implementation cost can be prohibitive for a lot of enterprise. And one more limitation, I think, when I think about AI, is really about
so the costs in part of doing all those things that you were putting into place, a governance structure, having the right kind of, but on the other hand, of course, if you don't do those things, the costs could be immense too, because you might harm people or at least make poor business decisions or have all kinds of other negative consequences.
And speaking of that, you know, another limitation is really the explainability of AI, meaning, you know, the current generation of AI systems, it's providing a lot of benefits to enterprise, to people, but there's just the inability to explain why it is making certain decisions and, you know, impacting, you know, you and me as individuals, our behaviors, right? So it will actually affect I think the adoption of AI. I'm very hopeful though, because I think many of these problems can be actually solved by AI itself. So, you know, the data problem, you can think about how to use AI to solve data quality problem, or something like that opens, you know, a lot of opportunities. And how do you use AI to actually explain yourself, right? So typically what people does is you use one algorithm to build a model and use another one to interpret the results and look for top drivers of the decision, things like that. So.
Anything to add, Scott?
Yeah, so I couldn't agree anymore with, you know, like both gentlemen said, especially, you know, coming back to the data context. So I think that's like, you know, I can give like, you know, like actual example of, you know, like from our experience too. I think like context is like not only like very, you know, important from data perspective, but at the same time from patient's motivation perspective, it's extremely important. Because like, for example, you know, like it's, because like, the AI, what that does is like it actually makes a lot of, you know, like a precise, you know, like, you know, and accurate, you know, like guesstimate and everything. But at the same time, what it can deliver is the like really the human touch. I mean, as cliche as it sounds, like for example, you know, like I don't know if anyone remembers, but there was this guy, opera singer from UK, Paul Potts. Like, you know, when he was like showing up, I think it was a British Got Talent or something, and then you know he showed up to stage, and then it was a competition program, and no one was really expecting anything, you know, out of him. But then again, he started singing, and then like this beautiful opera was coming out, and then everyone was just like giving standing ovation. So I was just thinking that let's think about, you know, we're making AI that can actually, you know, make some great opera as good as, you know, Paul Potts or somebody else, some other tenor. But then again, you don't feel the same. You just feel like, okay, this is great, but this is great music, but
Yeah.
I want AI and machine to be perfect anyway, so it doesn't mean anything. So what's the difference here? Then the difference, like my conclusion is, it's a context. Because like human, like context, like people get excited, people love Cinderella story, you know, people love, you know, American Dream, like and everything, because like motivation, you know, engagement, like everything comes from the context. You see something and that's contrary to your belief, you didn't know something, then you get excited. That's the difference between AI and then, you know, the actual machine. So back to our example, you know, like we tried a lot of different things, like, you know, for our algorithm, because like, you know, when it comes to stroke rehabilitation, motivation is the most important thing. Engagement is the most important thing because like, because of the neuroplasticity, like you just like have to keep engaging yourself, you know, repetitive action, repetition, but it's boring. It's not the most exciting thing. So we try to like give them like different props and then, you know, like, you know, push notification, like all different things, and then did A/B testing and all that. But there wasn't like, it wasn't like statistically like, you know, like significant. And then like, you know, we had a lot of team meetings about this and what is this, and then obviously, you know, you give props and like good, bad, you know, you got this, it helps, but like nothing really can be replaced by, you know, like our clinicians. We do have the, you know, therapists, you know, on the team, you know, when they get engaged, you know, through the, you know, virtual call, then like they get to see face to face, and then because of the context that they're in, they make the relationship with the you know, human faces, and then all the good stuff happens. So the way we are trying to mitigate is, I really believe in the like telehealth portion in the future. So I mean, obviously, if you use AI, I mean, machine learning, like everything is already there. And then like my background is like, you know, like software industry too. So apparently that you can just like put down the variable cost and all the costs. But, you know, by like just putting the human like inside of the whole chain, like I think that's the engagement, like motivation, like all coming out of context. So that really like helps. So
I like that there's this theme that you've been talking about, sort of the difference between, or the line between, artificial intelligence is meant in many ways to approximate human decision making, and yet perhaps there are lines, or maybe not, where it will never cross. And it'd be cool to just take a moment and think about what is that human versus AI interaction. Where should they be different? Do we think that the lines will continue to blur? Is that a good thing? How do you think about AI? And one other thing on that, you know, sometimes you hear concerns about computers are getting smarter, or they're like the comment on a previous session about they're gonna, I think it was Vinod Khosla who was quoted about replacing 80% of what doctors do. Like, does this mean doctors are gonna be replaced, or humans generally are gonna be replaced? Like,
okay, let me start with a quote, which is not mine, but somebody said that everybody talks about radiologists being replaced with AI, and somebody said, well, radiologists are not going to be replaced by AI, only the radiologists that don't use AI.
Yes,
so,
I like it. It's a good one.
And I think that should be the theme, because AI can do things we cannot do, but there's a lot of stuff that an AI cannot do. An AI doesn't have judgment, an AI doesn't have empathy. And we're still human beings, we're sitting here, we're talking to each other, you know, we get excited, we get ideas. We show empathy, which I think is the core of being human. And I think in care, there's nothing more important than empathy. But health is very complex, and there are a lot of complex drivers. And there's a lot of learning we can do that hasn't happened. Healthcare is not an industry where feedback loops are generally being used. With other words,
Right.
you'll be brought from department to department with handoffs, but there's never, a radiologist rarely gets feedback on how the diagnosis contributed to the outcome
Totally.
of the choice of therapy and the way the therapy was provided. So I think if we start building in those
Right,
feedback
and then how that
loops at
impacted that
scale,
person's life. Yeah.
then nurses will start working in a different way, but it will never take away the essence of their profession, which is providing judgment and empathy.
Awesome.
Yeah,
What do you think?
I think AI is already part of our daily life.
Yeah.
Especially when for my 4 years old twin girls, they ask Google, "Hey Google, can you play Captain Underpants episode X?" Right. So I think when we think about healthcare, I think AI is already on the way to be seamlessly integrated into. Really, I think all these touch points between human and the healthcare system. There's still a long way to go, but I think we have a lot of proof points. I think one of the things, by the way, to answer an earlier question you asked, I think what I'm also very excited is finally we have a better understanding of AI, how to put it into use for serving us as human better. We talk more about AI for sleeping better versus AI for replacing providers, right? So I think it's just a great improvement, now versus less than even 3 years ago.
Yeah.
I think you're right, and I think that will our understanding will need to continue to improve in part because of this explosion of data that you brought up, because we'll have different kinds of data to analyze, so that may change how we think about it. Any final thoughts on that human-AI line and relationship?
I think if you everyone in this room knows, but if you look at the conventional framework of how things get done, it's PDCA, plan, do, check, and just iterate, analysis and things like that. But it used to be plan, do, check, action. These were the AI's areas. But then again, even AI started planning by itself. Google did published this research in 2018, and then not only actually it analyze everything, because robot assisted surgery that's do, but AI finally started planning things around. So it's all PDCA got really taken over by AI. But I think what really matters is for me, I think it's going to be with AI kicking in, it's really all the criticize is the new stage, between P&D, and the DNC and CNA, because even if Google got the variables right, by planning by itself, then human has to be kicking in. That is this the right planning?
Yeah.
Because otherwise, then all the
judgment piece.
Exactly. So do and then criticize. So there's a lot of iteration that definitely is needed. So I think criticizing part is can never be replaceable by AI.
Cool. Well, this is, first of all, a very broad topic, and you guys come from very distinct and different areas, although there is certainly some overlap and even partnership.
Clearly overlap.
But I want to sum up a few things I heard to kind of pull it all back together a little bit. So AI is already shaping our lives, and although we are going to have to continue to iterate how to use it well within the context of healthcare, some of its amazing positives include personalization and being able to predict things and avoid them before they happen. We talked about engaging people on an individual level as well as on a pop health level. Those are among the positives, and we're obviously able to interpret data much more quickly and presumably correctly than we have in the past. On the negative side, we really do have to watch out for data quality, but also context, which is a really good distinction, I think. And also bias, of course, as well as semantic interoperability. So just because we have the data doesn't mean we can actually really mash it up and do useful things with it. And then I liked this point about explaining to people, always having to explain to humans, this is how I got here, this is why it matters, this is how it helps you, which is particularly important. We didn't talk a lot about privacy, which is another obviously huge thread, something to watch out for. But I think it's always important to remember that sort of line in which, or way in which AI can complement humans, so that we can be even stronger, I hope, in our empathy, judgment, and excitement. So with that, it's been exciting to speak with you guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
That was awesome.